Congress acts on GMOs. Ahead here on NTV's Grow, we have reaction to the proposal to create a voluntary national system. Plus, the heat is on, and it's leading to death loss for feedlots, adding up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. We also look at Nebraska's struggling wheat harvest and the fight over ethanol. You're watching NTV's Grow. It's no secret, heat can really stress out cattle, and the hundreds of head have been lost recently at feedlot operations because of the heat, and that heat continues to threaten local operations here. Now NTV's John Jankowski has a closer look.
On this hot summer day, steers and heifers cool off under a water fountain. Less than 2 weeks ago, Harlan feeders lost more than 200 cattle when the heat index hit 115.
This is something that rarely happens here. Rarely happens anywhere, especially in western Nebraska, but we just hoping the losses hadn't been as great as they are.
On this day, the rural fire department came in to help spray down the cattle and pens to make sure more animals weren't lost. But the day still hit their pockets pretty hard.
Well, it's a significant financial loss for sure.
How much money are we talking here?
About $400,000.
Insurance does not cover their losses, but the Farm Service Agency helps them out. With more than 7,000 head of cattle on the farm, it's tough to spray water on all the animals to keep them cool. Water supply from the local wells is limited.
Well, we've got our normal chores, you know, and then we look after the health of the cattle, and then there'll be about half of us. We've got some additional help coming. There'll be about half of us putting out this bedding and filling those water tanks.
Companies would not have to label products that contain GMOs. This is on a bill that just recently passed the U.S. House this week. The bill passed 275 to 150. It's backed by the food industry and farm groups who have fought mandatory labeling efforts in several states. Congressman Adrian Smith says he voted for the bill because individual state laws would become too confusing and cumbersome for farmers.
Today's legislation passed by the House creates a uniform, science-based labeling standard for food which empowers both consumers and agriculture producers.
Smith says science backs biotechnology and helps farmers conserve natural resources. Vermont is the only state set to require package labels for genetically modified foods. Nebraska wheat growers are out there in the fields, and for some, it's quite a letdown this year. Here's NTV's Tanner Kaler with an update.
Vaughn Johnson, who lives in the southwest part of the state, says while the late spring rains didn't impact his crop that much, other problems like winter kill and diseases did. Now he's looking to next year for a better harvest.
The wheat harvest on our farm was very poor this year.
That's how Vaughn Johnson sums up his 2015 wheat harvest, a sentiment shared by other farmers in the state as well.
Most farmers had low yields. Some of the farmers even destroyed their wheat before it ripened. They had so much winter kill that there just wasn't enough to even make it viable to cut any of it.
It's a risky step to take for some, and the National Association of Wheat Growers says if a farmer decides to take that route, to be prepared and report any damage and seek advice from an insurer before proceeding with harvest destruction. Not doing so could jeopardize a claim.
Just overall, it's going to be a poor year for wheat in this area and not a very money-making project.
Disease is also causing another headache for wheat farmers as well. The U.S. Department of Ag's Risk Management Agency says high levels of vomitoxin could result in price discounts or requirements to destroy the crop. For Johnson, he says stripe rust has caused the most damage.
There are some other diseases too, but that's the main one that came through. And some people sprayed a fungicide on it. There was just not enough yield to even make that worthwhile to do that.
Johnson says he'll average about 10 to 25 bushels per acre this year. The wheat was just too thin, and that allowed too many weeds to come up.
A third of the state's wheat crop ranks as poor. This is according to the recent information from the government report. Just 2% of the wheat in Nebraska is excellent. Most is fair to poor condition going into harvest. Corn, soybeans, and sorghum all fare better. Most in good condition. Temps have been above normal and precipitation also above normal in some areas of the state. Meanwhile, the latest government snapshot of crops in Kansas shows winter wheat harvest 96% complete. National Ag Statistics Service reported progress on wheat cutting this year, near the 98% average for the late in the season. But about 32% of the state's soybean crops are blooming, 7% setting pods, and roughly 64% of Kansas corn crops are silking. Natural resource districts are working to come up with a plan to help protect the water supply in the lower Platte River Basin. The districts are working with the Nebraska Department of Natural Resources, studying ways to meet the region's domestic, industrial, and agriculture water needs. The lower Platte River Basin includes more than 25,000 square miles in eastern and central Nebraska. The basin provides irrigation, industrial, and drinking water to more than half the state's residents. Water, a very precious resource, especially for those in the ag industry. But fertilizer use of decades are actually appearing to be affecting local drinking water in the small town of Prosser. NTV's Tanner Kaler reports.
We've had a nitrate problem here for some time.
And that's why there's been a ban on drinking water from the tap for about a year and a half there. Prosser is one of the first communities to receive grant money to fix their issue. New reverse osmosis water systems will be going into every home to lower those nitrate levels.
It's been coming for years, kind of from the northwest in a plume down towards Prosser. And, it's moving all over. A lot of places are going to have trouble probably sometime.
Just east of town, Hastings has seen their nitrate levels rise as well.
Water requirements do not allow a concentration of 10 parts per million or higher because it has been demonstrated that can have ill health effects on pregnant women and elderly people.
The city broke ground last year on a new system that pumps nitrate-heavy water from the aquifer that supplies the community into big above-ground holding ponds.
What we're trying to do is water down the water.
So what's to blame? Officials with the Little Blue NRD in Davenport say crop inputs.
Majority of the nitrates are probably coming from commercial fertilizers. Back when the nitrogen was just invented in the 60s and 70s, everybody was still learning how to apply the nitrogen.
Anderson says there's about 40 to 60 years of nitrates yet to make its way through the area.
So with the sandy soil, we probably have potentially a quicker leaching potential. If you do good practices right now, you might have a quicker turnaround.
The number of hogs here in Nebraska seem to be rebounding. The USDA numbers show inventory up 7% in June. The average pig saved per litter was a record high for the March through May period. This could be a sign of recovery in the pork industry in the wake of the PEDV virus, a virus deadly to baby pigs. The Nebraska Department of Ag Director Greg Ibaugh says they have been actively engaged with producers, informing them of protocols, and that dialogue about biosecurity continues to be important.
I think no matter what disease it is that we're dealing with in Nebraska or what species of animal, biosecurity is becoming more and more important for producers to, be able to protect their herd or their flock by just some simple steps that they can put in place on each of their operations.
No new cases of the bird flu have been diagnosed. However, it could take a long time for recovery. Most of those farms are still in the process of cleaning and disinfecting, but the two that finished that phase already still have to wait for environmental testing. As for the farm that completed all the steps, it will stay under quarantine for another 6 months before it can work on repopulation. Meanwhile, scientists developed the first vaccine to fight the bird flu outbreak. It tested 100% effective in protecting chickens. Testing is now underway to see if it works with turkeys. If it does, the USDA will quickly license it for widespread production. But not all poultry producers agree with the method. Some egg producers tend to resist vaccination programs because of the possible impact on export markets. Many countries have a strict policy of refusing to accept meat from nations using vaccines. Agriculture comes to Omaha through ag courses. It's through NCTA, the Nebraska College of Technical Agriculture in Curtis. They're offering classes this fall, teaching organic food production and a class on raising poultry for profit. The courses are part of the Urban Ag Partnership between NCTA, Omaha Home for Boys, and Nebraska Extension. The idea is to support local produced food and prepare students to move into ag-related jobs. innovation and finding solutions for farmers. Ortman Manufacturing, they celebrated 50 years this last week at the Ortman Expo. They featured new concepts to help keep input costs down, something very important in this current market cycle. When corn and soybean farmers are looking to just barely break even, the Ortman team says this is a time for innovation. Look at what they are doing to adjust to current challenges in future episodes here on NTV's Grow. We have the latest reaction when it comes to GMO labeling coming up after the break. Stick with us.